John Kelly is now 10 days into his new job as a White House Chief of Staff. Are we seeing any signs that he is bringing order to a West Wing that has often been seen as so chaotic? And what about his ability to rein in President Trump? Let's discuss now. CNN political analyst Tara Palmeri is here, and the White House correspondent for Politico as well. Political commentator Matt Lewis, a senior columnist at the Daily Beast, and Kurt Bardella, former spokesman for Breitbart, which was formerly run by Steve Bannon, now President Trump's chief strategist. So we have very accomplished people. Tara, I'm going to start with you. President Trump's comments about fire and fury against North Korea, reportedly they were improvised, but I want you to take a look at this freeze frame because you can see Jared Kushner, John Kelly sitting across from the president, and at the time he made those comments. And then if you look at all those people who were sitting there, their faces when he made the comment. General Kelly was there as well. Do you think he's been able to limit or control what the president is saying? Because this was made off the cuff.
The thing that General Kelly is learning right now is that he can control the aides around Trump, but he can't actually control Trump. Yeah. And that is the difference. And he accepted that, knowing that you're never going to stop him from tweeting, and he knew that. So that was never something that I was surprised to see that in reports. He knew that off the cuff.
But most people would say, when you said that, you know, duh, not to you, but if he thought he was actually going to control Donald Trump, I mean, there's twofold issues with Donald Trump. He has this freewheeling style, and he likes talking with aides all the time. And now General Kelly says, if you want to talk to Trump, you have to go through me. And from what I've spoken to some senior administration officials in the past few weeks, and they say there's way more order. People are showing up on time. They're actually going to meetings, as before they would just skip them because they didn't feel like they had to deal with Reince. And also, General Kelly said, Wait, people would skip meetings you work in the White House. Yeah, but they didn't feel like they had to go because what were the repercussions? Reince had zero power, and they could just talk to the president directly. So General Kelly says, I am on a war against factions. I do not want to read any more stories in the press. It's unacceptable about the divisions in this White House. There will always be policy brawls, but they should be playing out in the press, and they should be civil. And he's going to have a problem with that because whether he likes it or not, there are right-wing media aligned with Bannon who are going to take out their grievances against McMaster in the press, and Bannon will be blamed for them fairly or unfairly, even if he's not orchestrating it. But listen, Matt, Trump likes chaos. I mean, he likes it. So how is Kelly going to, I mean, how do you reconcile that?
That's why this is the toughest job in America. Tougher than being president, maybe. Look, I agree with everything that was said here. John Kelly is a general, not a magician. There is, I think he's, what would the world be like if John Kelly wasn't the chief of staff is maybe what we should be asking. I think that, he is probably doing as good of a job as anybody could possibly do, handed this very difficult mission. And I think he is, doing a good job of bringing order in terms of the staff. He's the chief of staff, not the chief of the president. The president doesn't work for him. He works for the president, and that tells you all you need to know about why it's so hard to rein in the most powerful man in the free world.
Hey, before I bring Kurt in, Matt, I want to ask you about this. Steve Bannon's feud with National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster making headlines for the past week now. And many people are wondering if President Trump should think about letting Bannon go, including the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, no less. So this is a couple of quotes from today's Journal. Mr. Trump may worry about the damage Mr. Bannon and his allies could do to his administration if he is no longer part of the White House team. But if his minions continue to vilify his colleagues inside the White House, how can anyone tell the difference? I mean, that's pretty strong words. It's from Rupert Murdoch's own paper. So how do you think they'll be received by President Trump?
Oh, I don't think he'll pay much attention to that. The Wall Street Journal has been, it's a conservative outlet, but they've been pretty anti-Trump, and I think for good reason. But
really? You think the Journal has been anti-Trump?
Yeah, they have. Of course, Bret Stephens, who went to the New York Times recently, is a prime example of somebody who's an anti-Trump voice that came from the Wall Street Journal. Look, I don't think. I'll tell you my personal opinion. I think that everybody's safe for having Steve Bannon inside the tent. Keep him busy at the White House.
Okay. Kurt, well, you know him. You know Steve Bannon. You worked at Breitbart. and you wrote this today for CNN. It says, is it any wonder North Korea, any other adversary of the U.S., isn't scared by Trump's threats? Most regimes do all they can to suppress gossip and prevent stories of disorganization and lack of unity from appearing in public. So what do you think is going to happen next in the Bannon-McMaster feud?
Well, until there's a clear winner, it's going to continue escalating, I think, for Bannon until he believes that he's won and successfully had McMaster removed from his position running the NSA. I mean, I think what you're seeing here is a complete inability, frankly, by the entry of Kelly to stop or control anything that wasn't already happening before. Think about this. We heard all this stuff about how Trump was so deferential to generals. Well, on perhaps the most serious foreign policy situation unfolding right now that could define his presidency, he's putting out statements without running them by his chief of staff, who is also a general. Yeah. You're seeing the complete open warfare between the national security advisor and the senior White House strategist and Steve Bannon and McMaster. That's going on in open warfare in public view. Like, is it any wonder that North Korea, you know what they're doing right now? They're publishing commemorative stamps celebrating the tremendous successes they've had at running the various ballistic missile tests. They're not afraid of anything that the United States is doing. They're not afraid of President Trump because, frankly, President Trump can't keep his own house in order. How could anyone really fear anything he has to say or do when all they got to do is look at his Twitter feed and see that he spends his time and his days attacking the free press, attacking his own attorney general, pitting his own staff against one another? I don't think that really inspires fear in any of our enemies.
Do you agree with Matt that Bannon, everyone is better served by having Bannon in the White House? He's more dangerous outside of his role at the White House?
I think on some level it comes down to what does he really know about some of the controversies that have gone on?
Will he really take revenge?
Well, I think Steve is a very vindictive person. If he thought at the end of the day that he could outlast President Trump or anyone inside the White House, he would. But again, I think the wild card here, more than anything, is the Russia investigation. Yeah. And since it's centered on the campaign, remember, Steve played a very active role when he was at Breitbart and communicating with the campaign, and played obviously an active role in running the campaign later on. How much he knows about that whole situation could have a significant impact on whether Trump ever really lets him go or not.
Tara, he is a survivor, though, Bannon.
Absolutely.
Without question.
Yeah, he is a survivor. So, I mean, do you think he's going anywhere, or do you think he would go anywhere?
I don't think so. And the one thing about Bannon is he's really trying to align himself with General Kelly. He's told colleagues and aides that he believes that General Kelly coming on board is a win for the nationalists in the White House. And he's tried to, form an alliance with him based on their military history. The truth is that Kelly is a very good friend of McMaster. He's going to defend McMaster, and he's not going to be amused with any sort of, attacks against him. But at the end of the day, Steve Bannon actually took a demotion in a way when Reince Priebus left, because they were technically on the same level, and now General Kelly is the chief of staff, and he's one step below him. So he knows who the new master is, and I think he knows how to stay. He's a survivor, as you said.
Yep. Thank you very much.